And this is where men get everything wrong. You know what? Fuck Gillette. Fuck the war on masculinity, the robbing of all things that are male, the attack against what it means to be strong, and the lack of empowerment to be a male. There's a problem. There is absolutely a problem in our culture that creates, one, weak men, but also has this overall voicing of what it means to be a good man is to suppress these things that are toxic and masculine and so on. But there's another side to this. And just because there is a problem, it doesn't mean that our reaction is the solution. And this is where men get everything wrong.
Hey guys, my name is Steve Mayeda and I'm a men's coach in Austin, Texas. I'm a BJJ practitioner, a Wim Hof enthusiast. I have an amazing family, 4 awesome boys and a beautiful wife. And what this podcast is about being the better man. What we talk about is tried and true because we've been doing it with groups of men just like you for over 12 years. Listen up, and I hope you enjoy.
So we are in San Antonio right now, and this freeze was supposed to come in last night. It's not freezing. It's only like 40 degrees, and I love the cold. But back to this whole podcast thing with Gillette is that this commercial came out and it represented a bunch of things which, man, I got a problem with. You know, of course we have a problem with bullying kids, but we shouldn't prevent kids from fighting or wrestling or doing masculine traits and calling it toxic and so on. The manosphere, which is probably the least healthy place to look at masculinity, just explodes. And on my free group, Austin Men's Development, it exploded. What's another razor brand? How are we gonna fight this? And in all my paid groups, they're like, man, why does this matter? And see, this is the thing. Culture, TV shows, commercials, what other people tell you, and ultimately what your wife is gonna tell you, what your girlfriend is gonna tell you, what the closest people in your life are going to tell you should never be the reason why you fail or why you quit. See, part of being a man is working through adversity, but working through challenging things. Men are fighting in the wrong way. We are fighting through gossip, through hysteria, through ads, through all this stuff, which really isn't true masculinity. Like I said, there is a problem, but your solution of hysteria, freaking out about it, thinking that it has diminished you, or once again, this is the reason why your ex-wife left you and you have all these problems in your life, that is part of a bigger problem. That's what we're talking about on today's podcast. Let's give it a listen.
So we got a problem with masculinity. Masculinity is ignored by a lot of people. It is attacked by a lot of people. It's perceived as this thing that is toxic. And in all of this, there's a couple different stories that come about it, where men then get hysterical, they get terrified, they rebel, they feel that we're at war because our masculinity is being taken away, that we're people that have to drop everything and move into this mode of hysteria. And it's an interesting thing because it happens all the time. You know, I work out of a men's group. We're on a men's development call right now. It's 11 p.m. Austin, Texas. And this is what we do. We actually talk about being better men. And I'll tell you this, in this whole thing of what we do and what I've done for years is that this almost never comes up. That the war against masculinity isn't really an issue with us because we're all living life. But when these different topics come up, like in this case, the Gillette commercial, the Super Bowl ad that, you know, men can do better, or what is their tagline here is, well, I guess I'll find it here in a second, but be the best man you can be. Be the best man you can be. And I'll tell you this is that being the best man that you could be is what we try and do, what we live for and what we strive for in our groups and so on. But in all of that, we just don't do it in the way that is in the commercial. I'm very far from it. A lot of stuff in the commercial made me mad. A lot of the stuff I disagree with, all that sort of stuff, but it's a commercial and it's corporate America and it only helps them. And the more the people, I can't even think of other razor companies at this point. And, you know, I don't know, maybe those other razor companies got a bump because of the whole thing. But this is show business, people. This is capitalism. This is stuff moving. When we turn our image of self. And this is what's important to you, men, and this is what you got to understand. And this is what is probably the biggest reason why we don't care about shit like this, is because when we define who we are as men by what the media's, what a commercial is saying, what stuff outside of ourselves is saying, we fail at being a man. And see, masculinity can be under attack, and I get that there's a problem. There is a problem. There are men who are weaker. There are men who don't have an identity. There are men that are, I guess, told the wrong story about what it means to be a man, and that, you know, you shouldn't have these qualities. You shouldn't fight. You shouldn't be attracted to women. You shouldn't hit on women in certain ways, and so on. But that all being said, the solution to this is what I disagree with. See, there can be a problem, but in so many things, what we see over and over again, we fail with our solution. And just because we have a problem with the solution doesn't deny that there is a problem. And see, here's the problem, is that there's a ton of lost men out there. There are people that don't know how to be a man. There are people that don't know how to hit on women. There are people that don't know how to defend themselves, that don't know how to stand up for themselves. There's a ton of men out there who get that wrong. But getting it right isn't fighting against the media, fighting against these different things. Getting it right is sitting with guys face to face and figuring out what works, is figuring out how the individual in front of you, the individual that is you, can be your best self today. And that is so freaking important about all of this. See, when it comes down to it and we make masculinity about a movement, we forget about the individual. When we make masculinity about complaining or pointing out what feminism did to us, or what society did to us, or what America, or, you know, South America, whatever, you know, did to what being a man is, we can no longer focus on the very power that is within us and the very nature that will sustain us. Here's what's beautiful about masculinity, is nobody can take it away from you. Only you can take it away from you. And how you can take it away from you in all these different ways is by gossip, by feeding into these like BS dialogues about how this commercial, that commercial, this blog article, this TV show, all these different things are going to make you fail. You believing in that is you giving up that. And see, when we move into this victim mentality, victimized culture of what it means to be a man, look, if you're a victim, you got something to work on. I don't care if you had something happen to you that you cannot control. At some point, you got to get over that. You got to heal from that. That is your job, to find power out of that event, that tragic, terrible thing that happened in your life, whatever it might be, and to prevent situations from it happening again. See, to be a man in our culture very clearly is not impossible. To be somebody who finds the benefits of masculinity in our culture is not impossible. It happens every day. And for you to be a man, to not see that, to not look for it, and depend upon a commercial or depend upon a message from somebody else to give you the power so that you can feel good, that is an irresponsibility. That is the biggest act of self-denial that, God, I can imagine, yet so many men do it. That's what's sad. That's what's totally screwed up about this whole dynamic. See, yes, I get it. Men these days don't know how to be men. Women don't know how to be women. And of course, that's not everybody. You know, that's a small percentage of men and women. But in that, we are listening too much to the stories of trauma, confusion, and man, just unawareness of masculinity and femininity, and using that to define how we see the person that is standing in front of us, sharing a life with us, sharing an experience with us, no matter how big or small that is. And when I start to see somebody through a stereotype, when I start to see somebody through a story from someone else's past, without them being able to resolve their pain, I have failed as a human. Look, people, talk to somebody in front of you. Just because somebody doesn't like a certain situation, just because somebody looks a certain way, just because you look at a person in a certain way, doesn't mean that there's a bigger story behind that. What it means is that you're an individual and you think and you exist and you have these qualities for a reason, and the dialogue between that needs to begin. And if we don't do that, then yes, we are dependent upon life happening to us and us not creating life. And when life happens to us, we become dependent upon sources like the media, like people, like your Facebook posts, like the trolls online, like the people who can be the loudest in a crowd of dissonance that only allows them pain. And that is what we're listening to. And that is one of the saddest things. You want to man up? You want to be a part of society? You want to get tapped into your masculinity? It never left you. You can find it. Go out and activate it. Use your body in that way. Use your sex in that way. Use your mind in that way. But also know that there's a wisdom to each and every one of those things. And yes, you can misuse your sex. Just because you have it there and it's a part of masculinity doesn't give it a bye to not fuck up, to not misrepresent you, to not hurt somebody else. Learn to use it right. Just because you have a body that works in a certain way, that has drives in a certain way, that should be ingratiated and should be appreciated and should be seen. I get it, by society and culture, you know, just like it may happen for women or whatever and so on and all this sort of stuff. That doesn't mean that you can't make a mistake with it and that you don't have to learn it. You, as a man, need to have responsibility for those things, build it up and live that. Guys, if you want to have this discussion, if you want to build yourself up in these ways, stop on by Austin Men's Development. This is what we talk about. More importantly, if you want to actively work on yourself, sign up for Men's Development Excellence. Look at our different programs that we offer. If you really want to dive into it, something like TSL Online might be all right for you. But this is what we do. This is what we do. Don't be a guy that sits on the sidelines, thinks about this stuff in your head, and gets angry. Join a group of men developing, men who've been there before, and who are set out to achieve excellence, because I can guarantee you that if you had that opportunity, you'd take it. And maybe now might be the time to do it.
Hey, so thank you guys so much for watching this. You know, the Austin Men's Development Group is something for growth in men, and it's very important for us to have that. And that's what we do. That's what I do. You know, I coach men, but more importantly, I facilitate areas where guys can come out and be guys, where guys can talk about this stuff and grow from it. So if you need an outlet to be a man, check that out. And of course, like, subscribe, share, comment. If this was something you disagree with or agree with, or you hate me, I'm all ears, man. Let's get into a discussion about it and not hide behind internet avatars and all that sort of stuff. And let's grow. All right. Talk to you later.